Have you ever walked into an empty room and your brain just immediately screams, nope? Like maybe it's an empty office hallway on a Sunday afternoon or a deserted wing of a hospital. I want you to really think back to that visceral, almost universal sensation of stepping into a space that was clearly built for people but is just completely uncomfortably devoid of them. Well, in today's Explainer, we're diving into a cultural phenomenon that took that very real, very unsettling feeling and built an entire terrifying universe right on top of it.
Actually, picture yourself standing there right now. As you step inside, you notice the carpet smells exactly like a building that's been locked up for 30 years. This gross mix of damp industrial fiber and forgotten dust. Above you, these stale fluorescent lights are just bathing the whole room in a sickly mono-yellow glow. But the most overwhelming part? It's the humming silence. There's no wind, no distant traffic out a window, no voices. It's just the endless electric hum of the lights and wall after wall of pale paneling, stretching out as far as you can see.
So where did this whole nightmare actually kick off? You might think it was a blockbuster horror movie or some best-selling novel, but no. It was birthed by a humble two-sentence post on a paranormal forum back in 2019. An anonymous user just uploaded a blurry photo of an empty, yellow room and dropped a warning. They said if you glitch out of normal reality, if you, no-clip like in a video game, you'll find yourself trapped in the backrooms. It was literally the ultimate inciting incident.
And the sheer scale of this place? It is practically beyond human comprehension. According to the lore that quickly spun up around that post, the backrooms are made up of approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented, completely empty rooms. 600 million. To put that insane number into perspective, that is larger than the entire surface area of the Earth. It's this architecture of infinite dread, bathed in madness-inducing light, where you are just hopelessly, endlessly alone.
Those initial 2 sentences completely detonated across the internet. I mean, the idea spread like wildfire. Within just a few months, a massive, internally consistent lore was being built by thousands of different people. The community started generating completely original photographs, wildly realistic found footage, elaborate survival guides, and incredibly detailed documented reports. It stopped reading like casual internet fiction and honestly started feeling like a desperate, collaborative documentary.
Let's break this down. Section 1, Level 0, also known as the lobby.
If you do happen to fall out of reality, this is exactly where you wake up. The lights here literally never turn off, which totally prevents any real sleep, and the only sustenance you'll ever find are these strange, unappetizing pools of a mysterious liquid they call almond water. In the normal world, we expect destinations. We expect the sound of the wind, voices, and just a baseline level of safety. But in Level 0, all of that is stripped away. There are absolutely no exits, just that constant humming. And while there are no confirmed monsters on this level, travelers report this deeply paranoid, inescapable feeling of unseen watchers. It's a presence you can feel right behind you, but you can never quite locate.
Section 2. Descending the levels.
Now, here is the truly horrifying rule of the backrooms. The environments become increasingly hostile the further down you venture. The spaces stop being just empty and start becoming actively malicious. Level 1 transforms into this massive warehouse with concrete floors and the distant sound of heavy machinery. Drop down to Level 2, and you're suddenly in a cramped maintenance corridor with dripping pipes. And I need to pause here for a second, because on Level 2, you have to maintain absolute silence. The things here are violently drawn to noise. Make it to Level 4, and you're suddenly in a suburban office space. But the windows just look out onto pure, blinding white. It's as if the outside universe doesn't even exist anymore.
If you go deep enough, the levels begin to abandon physical logic entirely. You might walk through a totally normal office door and suddenly find yourself standing at a dark indoor hotel pool at 3 a.m. The overpowering scent of chlorine just fills your lungs, and as you peer into the dark water, you realize there's something massive and silent moving around in the deep end.
But perhaps the most inexplicable level, the one that really gets under my skin, is the one that reads your mind. Imagine turning a corner in this infinite maze and boom, you're standing in your childhood home. And I don't mean a replica, I mean your actual home, down to the absolute smallest detail, including that terrifying open bedroom door from when you were 7 years old. The researchers in the lore can't even begin to explain how the architecture becomes this deeply, horrifyingly personal.
Section 3. You are not alone. The entities.
So the architecture itself is terrifying for sure. The environments are designed to break your mind. But the hostile entities that actually inhabit these spaces, that's the real physical danger. Let's take a look at the documented threats. The lore details some highly specific horrors here. You've got the hounds, which are aggressive creatures that track you entirely by sound. Then there are the skin stealers, entities that appear perfectly human from a distance, but only look horrifyingly wrong when they get within 3 feet of you. But, as you might guess, there are much worse things lurking in the dark.
Let's zoom in on the smilers for a second. These entities only appear when your light source fails. In the pitch black, you'll suddenly see 2 pale crescent shapes. They're slightly too large, slightly too close together, and they are oriented right at your face. They don't make a sound. They just follow you at a fixed distance. And if they ever accelerate, well, your journey is over. Literally no one who has seen a smiler accelerate has lived to tell the tale.
And then, there are the unnamed entities. These are beings so utterly incomprehensible that surviving an encounter with them literally shatters the human mind. The documented reports from these survivors are completely incoherent. They're not even stories anymore. They're just fragments, desperate number sequences, or maybe just the exact same word written 70 times in a row, followed by nothingness.
Moving on to Section 4, the architecture of the mind. So, what does this all mean? Why did this highly specific brand of horror go so massively viral? Well, the answer doesn't actually lie in the monsters, but in the architecture of the human mind itself. It all revolves around this concept, liminal spaces. Liminal spaces are basically places of transition that were never meant to be destinations. Think of a stairwell, an empty parking garage, or a hotel hallway at night. Our nervous systems evolved to recognize human patterns, right? So when we encounter a space designed for crowds that sits completely empty, our brain registers it as an evolutionary glitch. It senses danger before we even logically know why.
And that is absolutely crucial to understand. The Backrooms did not invent this creeping sense of dread. It simply gave it a name. And then it provided a set of rules for it. The whole mythology resonated globally because it provided a tangible, shared framework for a deeply ingrained, almost universal fear that every single one of us already carries inside.
Finally, Section 5, the 1980s mystery. If you thought the psychological breakdown was the end of the explainer, buckle up. Let's look at the actual historical photograph that started this whole thing. Notice the timeline discrepancy here. The original forum post went live in 2019. But when digital investigators actually pulled the metadata from that original pixelated image, they discovered something incredibly chilling. The photograph was actually taken somewhere in the late 1980s. That means the real image existed for 30 whole years before the mythology or that forum post was ever created.
Which obviously poses some massive unresolved real-world questions. I mean, who actually took that original photograph in an empty commercial space in the 1980s? And even more unsettlingly, why did they keep it entirely secret? Why did they never share it or explain it for 3 full decades before it mysteriously just popped up on a paranormal forum?
But honestly, the most lingering mystery of all isn't about the metadata. It's about how the image affects us. Almost every single person who sees that original, uncaptioned photo for the very first time reports an inexplicable shared sense of familiarity. Without knowing a single piece of the lore, people look at the image and immediately say, it smells like somewhere they have already been.
You already know the smell, don't you? You've kind of known it your whole life. So the next time you step into an unfamiliar building and you feel that sudden, distinct wrongness, the humming lights, the damp carpet, the silence that is entirely too heavy, pause for just a moment, will you? Check all the exits.